Welcome to the Mason Duchatschek Show. This episode is brought to you by WorkforceAlchemy.com, helping leaders improve hiring, engagement, and retention while uncovering people-related profit leaks hidden in everyday operations. Today's guest, Vance Morris, spent a decade inside Disney, helping launch Chef Mickey's and learning firsthand what keeps customers coming back again and again. After Disney, he brought those same principles to organizations like NASA and the Smithsonian, proving that you do not need massive budgets to create unforgettable experiences. Today, he helps small business owners Disneyfy their customer service with practical, real-world strategies. And if you want stories, examples, and lessons that you can actually apply, this conversation will deliver. Welcome to the show.
I appreciate it, Mason. Hopefully I'll drop some gold nuggets for everybody today.
I'm betting that you will. So take us back to your days at Disney. What is one moment from that experience that taught you a lesson that you still use today?
You know, it was actually one of the first lessons I got when I started with the company. I was on the opening team of the Yacht and Beach Club Resort. This was back in like 1990. And I was with the training manager, and we walked into this one of the ballrooms where they were doing the training, and there were just stacks of binders everywhere. Stacks. This is before the internet, so everything was done on paper back then. And I asked him, I said, what are all these things? He goes, well, these are all the OJTs and SOPs for how Disney opens and operates its resorts. And they had a binder for everybody, the bus boys in each restaurant, the front desk guys, the housekeepers, everybody had a binder. And I was just blown away by it. You know, you'd think my first lesson would have been how to pick up trash or smile at people or something like that. But it was that Disney runs on systems and processes. And what I realized also is that they are simple systems, because if they were complex, the whole thing would fall apart. So I learned that walking through step by step, Disney runs on 3 words. It's what to do, how to do it, and why we do it that way. And the third one, why, that's the one that most business owners miss when they're trying to train their employees or come up with systems and standards for their business. Because that why is where you get employee engagement. Now they understand why we answer the phone the way we do, why we greet a customer the way we do. So you've got to have those standards, and they've got to be laid out simply. And if you want employee engagement, you got to have the why.
Are you implying that because I told you so is not sufficient?
No, that is not going to cut it. Do as I say, not as I do. Yeah, that's not going to cut it at all.
So can you share maybe a specific story from Disney where a small detail created a massive impact on the guest's experience?
Sure. Oh my gosh, there's a lot of those. Well, one, I'll say, we had a mission at Chef Mickey's. And I think that's one of the lessons that I learned as well, is that Disney, I'm sure, has a mission statement, and it's probably in a little gold leaf binder somewhere in Burbank on a shelf, and nobody knows what the heck it is. But Chef Mickey's had a mission, and our mission was to get 400 people through, 400 people through 43 minutes and make it feel like it was a good time. The reason it was 43 minutes was because that's the average time a table for 2 would dine with us. And so we had to figure out a way to get Mickey Mouse. It was a character dining destination. We had to figure out how to get Mickey Mouse through the dining room in 43 minutes and see 400 seats. And so we had to go to each and every department to try and figure out, how can you help us with getting the mouse through? And so we went to the bus boys and we said, hey, we got 43 minutes. I got to get the mouse through the room. What can we do to help you? Or what can you do to help with that mission? And they were like, well, when we clean a table, we've got the sugar boat and the salt and pepper shaker and the little table tent and the other little doodads on the table. And it takes time for us to remove those. If we just had a little basket that all that stuff was in, it would really speed things up. So we got the bus boys baskets for all of the tables, and all the sugar boats and everything went in there. And now when they clean, they've got to lift up that thing, wipe, and put the basket back down. saved like, I don't know, 23 seconds or something like that. But we did that with every department and we went and asked, okay, how can you help us achieve our mission? And so really a small detail, like just a little basket for, sugar and things like that really made an impact on the operations.
Plus, it let them know that you paid attention, that you cared.
Well, if you want employee engagement, you got to include them in the process.
So, maybe what's an example of a time when something went wrong at Disney and how the team handled it in a way that actually made things better?
Well, I mean, I've got an interesting story. I was duty manager at Pleasure Island, it's gone now, but it was Disney's answer to adult entertainment. It was 7 nightclubs on a 5-acre island. What could go wrong there, right? And so we had one
Probably
night.
sounded like a good idea at the time.
It did somewhere. Well, I mean, the markup on booze is amazing. So, and it was financially, it was a huge hit. But we had a movie star. Won't name him, but came in and I had to tour him around because that was part of my job. I know, rough job, right? Touring movie stars around
Someone's got to do
Disney
it.
Park. Somebody's got to do it. And we got to this one nightclub and he took a shining to one of the waitresses and he said, I'd like her to come party with us for the rest of the night. And I'm thinking to myself, this is not going to end well. And he went to offer, I'll pay all of her tips for the whole night. I'll give the club all of the sales she would have generated. I mean, he went on and on. And in my mind, I think, I'm not a pimp. What the heck is this? But luckily, we had one of those standards things to fall back on, which was if you work on the island, you can't party on the island on the same night. And so I didn't have to tell him no in a gruff or a weird manner. It was just, hey, we have this standard and, we just can't do it. I mean, he wasn't happy about it, but, at least I had something to stand on.
So, when you left Disney and started working with organizations like NASA and the Smithsonian, what was a moment where you realized that these principles could work anywhere?
Well, geez, when you're working with people, and I know a lot of HR folks will say that, but if you have people and you serve the public, pretty much anything at Disney can be adapted. Now, it's not copied because I work with a lot of small businesses and they're all like, well, why do I want to copy Disney? I don't have a Cinderella castle. I don't have a roller coaster. Why do I copy them? And it's not copy, it's adapt. So there are so many principles that Disney has that can be adapted into any industry.
But can you
You know, take
give me an example from
Yeah.
something maybe a small company did?
Yeah. Oh, certainly. So I worked with a bunch of insurance agents once, and there was one guy, I remember he was an Allstate agent, and there were like 8 other Allstate agents in his city, plus all of the other guys, the blue guys and the orange guys and, whoever. So it's probably 60, 70 insurance agents. And he was having a hard time standing out. And after some brainstorming, we realized that answering the telephone was his number one way of getting customers and kind of testing them out and things like that. But he needed a way to stand out. So when I visited his office, I went in and I mean, he was just a rock and roll fanatic. I mean, he had gold records on the walls, autographed guitars, Who posters, you name it. And his receptionist was the one that came up with the way to answer the phone. She says, I really think we should lean into this rock and roll thing. So, if you call most companies these days, you'll get some version of thank you for calling ABC company. How can I help you? Very boring, mundane, and, pretty much anybody can answer the phone that way. So we wanted to get out of that. So now the way they answer the phone is thank you for calling Dave's Allstate, the agency that rocks. And they say it kind of with that little Wolfman Jack kind of saying. Now remember, this idea came from an employee. And I don't know if she knew that we were actually going to implement it, but the idea came from her. And yes, once you say it 19 times or so, the corniness of it wears off. But by answering the phone that way, they did a couple of things. One, they certainly separated themselves from everybody else in the industry. He was the only rock and roll insurance guy in the city, probably in the country. And also by answering the phone that way, we sifted, sorted, and screened out anybody that would have been a bad client for him. So if you think about your marketing, it's designed to do 2 things: attract the people you want to do business with and repel the people you don't want So just by answering the phone that way, he got rid of anybody that just would have been a dud of a client for him.
Nice. So maybe can you walk us through a real example of a small business that you helped that transformed their entire customer experience and what changed as a result of some of the other changes you made?
Sure. So I got a few of these. So one of them was a financial advisor. And, financial advisors, if you're not sure, I mean, I'm of the age where I get the postcard that says, come to the free dinner and then they'll pitch you on whatever retirement plan. And so my client was doing that, but she had a huge drop off from the dinner to the first meeting. So at the dinner, they invite you, come on in for an office visit. We'll go over your financials and we'll come up with a plan for you. So between the dinner and the first meeting, she lost a bunch of people. And we found out that people weren't showing up because they couldn't find her office. Now, granted, she was in one of those big wonkin' Silicon Valley office parks. There were probably 100 other tenants in the building. She was up on the fourth floor. The signage was horrible, and the building manager wasn't being very helpful. I said, "Well, we got to fix this. What can we possibly do?" So we decided that we would do a video, and every one of her clients or prospects would get a video. And we put one of her employees in a car and we videoed him driving in to the parking lot into the designated space with her name on it. We showed them walking in the front door so they know what door to go into, what button to push on the elevator, what floor to push once they're in the elevator, and then where to go when they're coming off the elevator. And the big kind of wow moment was when they walked into the office. Now, when I walked into the office the first time, they said, "Yeah, would you like a glass of water while you're waiting for your client?" I said, "Yeah, sure." They came out with this little 4-ounce styrofoam Dixie cup, probably of tap water. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, this is a premium service. I mean, she charges a lot of money for her financial consulting. This is not very congruent. So we changed that. And if you're going to offer water, you might as well go all in on it. So now when you get off the elevator and you walk into her office, there is the receptionist standing there with a menu, one of those nice steakhouse menus. And there's 6 bottles of stills, 6 bottles of sparkling water in the menu. And they ask, what's your favorite water? What can we get you?
Nice.
And so now they've eliminated the problem and they've created a wow moment that's a lot more congruent with who they are.
100%.
Now there's 2 more steps to this, which we found is that if they had a certain amount of assets, instead of getting on the elevator and riding up, the advisor would actually come down to the lobby and escort you up. So you still got the video, but you were surprised by the advisor being in the lobby waiting for you. And if you were in the uber top 0.1% of her clients, you didn't even have to worry about all that. They just sent a car for you.
Nice.
Just sent a limo to the house, picked you up. There is no way you're getting lost coming to this place because the car service is going to pick you up, bring you right to the door, and the advisor is going to meet you there to take you up to the office.
That's nice. So can you maybe give me a story where a business thought they were delivering great service, but a blind spot was really costing them customers?
Yeah. So, that's one of the things that a lot of people, there's a huge disconnect. And this is where business owners go wrong. And this was a study done, it hasn't been updated, but I think it's like 2 years old. And they polled people and they said, okay, does this company provide great service? And they asked the owners of the companies, and 80% of the owners said, yes, we deliver great service. When they polled the customers of those businesses, only 8% of the customers said that they deliver great service. There's a huge gap. Now, I also question why was it only 80%? I mean, you'd think if you owned the business, you would say, yeah, of course we deliver great service. At least people were being honest with themselves to a point. So there's this gap that we have to overcome. One of the things that I like to do is create memorable experiences. And at the end of any interaction with your company, you should be, the customer should be saying something to the effect of, oh my God, you'll never guess what happened when the carpet cleaner was here. Or you'll never guess what happened at the dentist office today. That's what you want to evoke. And most times, you don't go home to the dinner table and have that conversation with people. Oh my God, you'll never guess what happened at the oil change. Conversation just doesn't happen. So you have to, and it's not saying that people are doing a bad job. They're just not doing a great job and they're not being memorable. So a example of how do you change that to being memorable is I worked with a oil change company. So kind of like a Jiffy Lube, Quick Lube, but he was independent and he had 4 service stations and he was constantly competing on price. And he knew he was delivering pretty much average to below average service because it was get them in, get them out. How fast can we do it? The guy down the street lowered his price. He had to lower his price, just a race to the bottom. And I told him, I said, there's no competitive advantage to being second cheapest. So you might as well go, I mean, you can't use that in a headline, right? Hey, we're the second cheapest in town. It just doesn't work. So I said, you got to go the other direction. Let's go premium and really provide a service. So what we did was we turned his oil change business into this like 50 style service station where 4 guys run out with little bow ties and white shirts. One guy squeegees your windshield. The other one checks the air pressure in your tire. One guy, they have nice gloves on. They escort you into the waiting room where there's actually today's newspaper. And there's a barista waiting there to make your favorite coffee drink. Now this is at an oil change place. The barista just happens to be one of the oil change technicians and they rotate the job throughout the week. So the result of all this, one, he's charging 45% more than his closest competitor for an oil change. So, I mean, he's not using fancy oil. It's just oil. And so he's increased his profitability exponentially. Yes, his top line has gone, his volume has gone down because, people, well, I can get it down the street cheaper. Great. The people that are coming to him now, and he's got a line out the door just about every day, are people that appreciate that level of experience. And now some people think to themselves, oh, I can't afford to do that. Well, it really didn't cost him much to do this. He already had uniforms for his employees, so all he had to do was switch them, right? The biggest expense he had was the coffee machine that he had to install in his waiting room. Other than that, it was no expense to create this wow moment. Hopefully that
No,
answered your
it's
question.
funny you say that because I actually did a blog post probably a year ago. I was in Wichita, Kansas, and I went into a oil change place that was there. Their marketing did a great job. They sent me coupons. They stayed in touch with me. He's like, hey, here's a coupon, go. So I took the time to drive there to get an oil change. And there was one guy there and he was the assistant manager. And he's like, I'm sorry, but none of our people showed up today. Like, what's the value of my time? So when you say I couldn't afford that place couldn't afford it. Their marketing people did a job. They basically sent customers to a place to have a bad experience and to not get it.
Right.
And I'm curious, on a side note, I'm kind of curious how you get, and you would think it would be common sense, but common sense isn't always common. How you get some of these business owners. If I saw what you saw, and the business owner saying, hey, 80% of our customers say we're doing a good job, and 8% do, I'm starting to think it's the emperor has no clothes. The employees who work there aren't telling this guy the truth, and he's got some delusional idea because there's a lot of, in any organization, I'm not picking on this one, but in any organization, there's a lot that happens between where the rubber meets the road and the boss hears about it. And everybody in that chain between where the customer interacts with the frontline employee and the top of the food chain, there's a lot of people who have a vested interest in making sure the boss doesn't hear bad news because they'll get blamed or they'll get fired or whatever it may be. So they give a sanitized version of the truth. They exaggerate what they're doing well. They cover up what they're doing poorly. And now you've got a boss who thinks that 80% of the people love us when it's 8.
Right. Yep. And, one of the simple ways to fix that, and I do this. So I think I mentioned I own 3 bricks and mortar businesses myself here in Maryland. I still own I have a mold remediation company, a Oriental rug washing facility, and a carpet cleaning company. I still own them, had them for 19 years now. So I'm not one of those consultants that just kind of spouts off about stuff. I actually have the rubber hits the road thing. But one of the things we did early on was implement feedback cards or comment cards. And they bypass everybody and come right to my house.
I love it. I know a CEO in Springfield, Missouri. Her name's Patty Penny. She runs at one point was the largest female-owned business in the state of Missouri. I think at one point she was also in the top 83 in the Inc. 100 privately held businesses.
Wow.
It's a very successful business. She gives out her personal cell phone number to every single client. And
Yeah.
every employee in the company knows that any client at any level can pick up the cell phone and call Patty Penny.
100%. And we do the same with, we give a gift when we enter the home. And part of the gift is a little note for me saying, thank you so much for letting us into your home. If you have any questions, here's my personal cell phone number.
That's accountability.
You know, in 10 years, I can count like twice that somebody called. And one time was, oh my God, this guy was great. And the other time was, well, he got the stain out, but then the spot came back. Can you send somebody back out? Sure, of course. But,
See,
just having that
I
there is,
love what you're talking
yeah.
about. Like I said, common sense isn't common. I was at a hotel in Vegas right around a year ago. Nice hotel. And the customer experience objectively insufficient on multiple levels. And I asked to talk to the person in charge. And I said, look, I'm not one to rip people online because these are mistakes that are a matter of your systems in place and the processes don't deliver a good customer experience. In fact, they deliver the opposite. And if you stayed as a guest in this hotel and experienced, you would already know this, and the people who above you would too. But I don't want to just go online and rip you. I want to help. I'm not just a complainer. I'm like, here's a solution for this. Here's a solution for that. And she looked at me with despair and just said, Mason, those decisions are all made above me. And the people that are involved in those decisions never come to this property. They do not understand. I do. And I agree with you. She goes, but there is absolutely nothing that I have the power to change without them. And the only way to get their attention is to write the bad reviews because that's the only way they'll ever hear anything.
And that's just sad state of affairs. My gosh.
I mean, how
Yeah.
unbelievable.
And
That's on the
I
internet
run
forever. That stuff,
yeah.
there's no erase button on the internet. Those reviews are going to stay there forever. And we're basically got your employees saying, go ahead, please tell our bosses because they won't listen to us. Talk about a cry for help. But what's the damage of that business? The pain that business is going to have to suffer for each one of those, much less a whole bunch of those complaints getting voiced publicly because of tone deaf folks up top that aren't listening.
Well,
So-
and sadly, it's, a lot, what I found a lot is that this happens a lot with private equity. Once they grab a hold of, especially a hospitality business, they're squeezing it for every nickel possible. And the service just, goes completely in the crapper, for lack of a better word.
Oh, let me give you a very specific example. They wanted to charge me $30 the local telephone fee.
That's incredible.
I've got a cell phone. I don't need that. Well, it's required. It's part of the thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
$30 to use a local telephone. I don't need the local telephone. I've got a cell phone. I can call anybody anywhere. Like,
well, welcome to the 2000s, right?
this was 2025.
No, I know. I get it. I mean, it's those resort charges.
That's
that
exactly
you
what
have
it
no
was.
idea what that thing covers, but they're going to charge.
I can tell you exactly what it covers. It covers the pool that opens at 10 o'clock when checkout is at 11.
Yeah, right.
And it closes at 5 at night when checkout is at 3:30 in the afternoon. Those were on the list of items.
Yeah, I get it.
So how do you know when a business is creating loyalty versus delivering a decent experience?
Well, they go hand in hand. If you don't have a great experience, you're not going to have loyalty. And I tell folks, don't delude yourself with punch cards or, these loyalty gimmicks, because that's what people are sticking around for. They're only sticking around until they get that 10th cup of coffee and it's free. That's not loyalty. That's like hostage taking or bribery or whatever you want to call it. Loyalty is people will drive past two other options to get to you.
I love that definition.
It's true.
It is true.
I got a guy, actually here in town, a hardware store that I helped out. And I wish I could take credit for my my answer for them, but it came from Will. I always get his last name wrong. He wrote Unreasonable Hospitality. Will Guerrera, great book. Anyway, they're in town and they have no off-street parking, and everything on the street is parking meters. Not 2 blocks away is one of those big Lowe's home improvement stores, and they got an ocean of parking. And so they were getting, people were driving, well, I'm not going to pay to park. So we implemented, and I got it from the book, I firmly admit it. We put a coffee can full of quarters on the countertop, and a little note that says, hey, here's the quarters to feed your meter. We want to make sure that, you stop and stay with us, and we'll help you. We'll feed the meter with the quarters for you. We turned that into a marketing campaign, and business just boom. And people are honest. It's not like they're grabbing fistfuls of quarters. They literally will grab one or two to feed the meter for what they were doing. Now people will stop there and not go on to the big guy because they deliver. I mean, the service in there is, oh, you need a hammer? Let me show you our hammers. And then the guy escorts you over to the hammer section. He goes, okay, this one's great for hanging pictures on the wall. This one's great for driving a post into the ground. I mean, just the service is unreal, but they had to overcome the parking issue to get to it.
So can you maybe share a time when a business tried to Disneyfy their experience but got it wrong, and what others can learn from it?
Yeah, well, this would go back to a private equity held company. We were staying I had hosted my mastermind at a kind of fairly high end hotel in Annapolis, Maryland. And one of the guys came down in the morning with a cup from his room, and it was plastic. Now, this is a $500 a night hotel, and it had a plastic cup, and not one of those little ones, like you get at Holiday Inn that's got the cellophane and you got to tear it apart. I mean, this was a nice plastic cup, but it said, it had the name of the company and resort division or luxury division written on it. And we're like, this is not congruent. I mean, Hampton Inn gives me real glass, this guy, they thought it was great to have their name on a plastic cup. That was a nice cup, but it was plastic, and they had to emblazon it with luxury division on it. There was nothing luxury about a plastic cup.
Wow. What is a moment in the customer journey that most businesses overlook, but you've seen make a huge difference?
After the sale. Most businesses say, oh, got their money. Thanks. And you should remember us because we did a great job. And that couldn't be any farther from the truth. My rule of thumb is that it is not the customer's job to remember you. It's your job as the business owner to remind customers that you exist. So hopefully in your service or in the sale or use of your product, you've created some kind of connection with your customer. Even big companies can do this. I mean, Disney does it all the time. Everybody's got an emotional connection to Disney. They all have their story. So we want to continue that, because what's the best time when people are feeling great about your company is right when they bought something, right? You feel good because you got money. They feel good. They spent money. They got their new product, their whiz bang thing, or they're getting the service. And then that's where businesses stop. And you can't stop there. Like I said, it's your job to remind the customers you exist. So immediately
I'm actually writing, I haven't told anybody about this, but I'm writing another book, and I may end up using that quote, and I will be sure to give you credit for that.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Everybody needs to hear that.
Well, I work with companies. I said, do you have a marketing budget? 99% of them, yeah, we got a marketing budget. I said, great. How much of your budget is designed to retain customers? And they all look at me like I got three heads, and then I try to explain to them that you do realize that serving an existing customer is a heck of a lot cheaper than going out and getting new ones all the time.
Amen.
My carpet cleaning business cost me $136 to get a new customer in the front door. That's the Google ad. That's the guy answering the phone. Everything it takes to get somebody in the front door, $136. Cost me $23 a year to keep a customer. So the minute we serve an existing customer, I'm $100 plus more profitable because I was able to serve an existing customer. I didn't have to go out and get one new.
So do you have any tips or examples of how to create a memorable experience without adding a bunch of cost or complexity?
You just have to, I say this and it's trite, but think outside the box. I coined a term. It's called Disneyfy. And that's creating experiences out of all of the boring and mundane things that we have to do day in and day out to keep the business up and running. Disney's just figured out a way to create experiences out of answering the phone or greeting guests or anything like that. So that's what we want to look towards. The insurance guy answering the telephone cost us nothing to change the way we answered the telephone. We've created a process for getting into the home for our carpet cleaning technicians. Now that's a boring, mundane thing that we have to do. If we don't do it, we can't do our service. So we created an entire process out of it. And as I'm going through this, in your mind, tally up the amount of dollars it cost me to do this. And it's going to surprise you at the end, and it ain't much. So we park in the street. We don't park in the driveway. God forbid I got an oil leak. Now I got something else I got to clean up. He gets out. He's in a clean uniform because he carries extra uniforms with him in case he gets dirty on the job beforehand. He also doesn't smell because I forbid smoking and I forbid cologne. Nothing worse than the Marlboro man who just took a shower in Axe showing up in your living room. He's got a special carpet. He's got his tool bag and a little gift. He goes up to the front door. He lays down this mat, and then he knocks on the door. He doesn't ring the bell because friends knock and salespeople ring. Takes a couple of steps back. Mrs.
True.
McGillicuddy answers the door. We say, "Hi, my name's Josh. I'm here to create your healthy home. May I come in?" We don't just barge in. And then when she opens the door for us, we do an exaggeration, so a little bit of theater of wiping our feet on the mat, put little booties on our clean shoes. And as we're going into the home, we present Mrs. McGillicuddy with a gift. Now, when was the last time you had a home service company give
Never.
you a gift?
Not
Right.
one time.
I mean, pest control, plumber, whatever. Probably never. So we give her a gift. And the gift is nothing extravagant. It's a little custom blue box, got a bottle of spot remover, a little bag of Entenmann's cookies, and a note from me thanking them for allowing us into your home. And, here's my cell phone number. We mentioned that earlier. So the gift cost me less than $5. The booties cost me, I don't know, 10 cents each. So for under $6, we have created this experience. It did two things. One, it again separated us from everybody else out there because there ain't nobody doing that. And my competitors all know I do it because I've seen them hiding in the bushes, looking at my guys. But two, it started reciprocity. I give something to you, you feel compelled to give something back to me. So we saw a 26% increase in our mid-tier package when we implemented the gift, which equated to about $75,000 in additional sales every year. So it doesn't have to be expensive. I mean, like I said, that was under $6. I don't want anybody to think that I came up with that overnight. This was iteration, version 1, version 1.1, version 2, etc.
Sure.
This probably took us close to a year to get this thing to where we are today. And we just immortalized it in our standards. But first thing is just think about a process that's just, you got to do it. It's boring. And how can you Disneyfy it?
So I'm really curious to hear your answer to this question. Looking ahead, what changes in customer expectations do you think will catch most businesses off guard?
Customers still expect somebody to answer the telephone.
It's funny you say that was a loaded question because I'm ready for this one. But go ahead, tell me why you think.
Well, so I'm partner in a call center, and when we were doing our research, we called 4,000 home service companies, and we got their phone number from Google Ads. So these are companies paying to have their phone number out there. 17% answered the phone live. That was it. I don't know what 17% of 4,000 is. Only a few hundred people answered the phone live. So all of the other companies lost the business because they're just going down to the next name in Google. Okay, well, this one didn't answer. Great, going to the next one. So answering your phone live, if you're going to use AI or a bot or a something to answer your phone, I get it. If you're a solopreneur, maybe you're a one guy HVAC person and you're in an attic and you just can't answer the phone up there. I get it. And you need I would prefer
And
you
so do
get
most
a service.
customers. And I think most customers do too.
Get a service to answer your phone. And if you can't afford that, which it's actually relatively inexpensive, and you got to go with the bot, option number 1 needs to be connect me to a human, not option 13, that, you gotta listen to all 13 options because you don't know when the human option is going to come up.
I
It should
love
be
it.
number one.
So literally not more than 26 minutes prior to us logging on to visit with each other today, I was sitting across the conference table from a person I work with, and she was calling her insurance company and had it on speakerphone. And it was like, thanks for calling XYZ insurance company. Your call is very important to us. At which point in time, I look at her, I'm like, I
No,
don't
it's not.
believe you. And it said, all of our agents are busy right now, but your calls are important to us, and we will make sure you get connected with the next available agent. Please hold. Not more than 10 seconds later, there's a problem with our system. Goodbye.
Jeez.
Like your call's important to us. No, it isn't. And I'll get someone else on the phone to talk to you in a moment. I don't believe you. It was literally, I said that to her she was sitting across the conference table from me, and I go, I don't believe him, and no, they won't. And sure enough, disconnected. Goodbye. Click.
Yeah.
It happened today. And I'm it's sometimes doing the simple things well becomes exceptional when expectations drop.
And it's, I would rather be known for doing something simple well than having things screw up. I mean, if you look at Disney, they run on three words: what to do, how to do it, and why we do it that way. It's a simple system. Right? I mean, you
It
think about
is.
who's working there, right? It's, a bunch of teenagers, early 20s people. They're not thinking about work. They're thinking about tonight's keg party, right? So if the system wasn't simple, the whole darn thing would fall apart. And that goes with any business. You fast food or wherever, you got to have a simple system because if it's complex, it's going to break.
So if you could give only one piece of advice to those who are joining us today, what would be the most important piece of advice you could give and why?
Well, I am, as we mentioned earlier, a rubber hits the road kind of guy. So pick one thing that you heard today, whether it's on this podcast or you read a book or something, and implement it. We all have plenty of information. There's not enough of the implementation. I don't have any quote. I created one quote. That's the only one I stick with. And it's you won't profit unless you implement. That's the only thing that's going to move the needle. So pick one thing that you've heard today and go and adapt it and try it in your business.
Thank you. If people want to know more about you, your company, and the work you do, what are the best ways for them to find out more and to connect and interact with you?
Yeah, sure. The only social media I do is LinkedIn, so feel free to connect with me there. I'm the only Vance Morris Disney guy on the thing. And then, if you like, I have a free gift for everyone. It's called 52 Ways to Wow Your Customer Without Breaking the Bank. So it's one wow for every week of the year, and they're all low or no cost ways to do that. And you can find that at Wow.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. I enjoyed every minute. Thank you.
Thanks, Mason, for having me. I appreciate it.